I just want to clarify first and foremost, this list will change when the patch note come out. But for now, with what the information we have and basically everything that we kind of know about the changes, like we know the arrows are gonna be nerfed and stuff like that, and with all the experience I have, I've been speedrunning for I've been playing this game easily for 800 hours and speedrunning a lot of classes. I've tried a lot of stuff early game, so I really know what is a good league starter and what is a bad league starter. And this list is purely based on league start. Okay, this is not about is it gonna be good later. Who knows? Because we have no clue about this. All I know is it a good league starter or not, and based on the early ascendancies and whatnot. So let's start with the list. We're gonna start with the bottom. There's gonna be points for all good, because right now we know that the league is gonna be a lot about killing uniques, rares, and way less about clear speed, right? So this list is gonna be about how good is it at killing uniques, how good is it at killing rares, what's the survivability, how good is the clear, even though the clear is not that important this season. I think so. It's still really important to include, because when you're killing a rare, you're not only killing a rare, you're killing everything else around it. So if you only have a really good single target to kill a rare, well, you might be really good at killing uniques, but you're not going to be good at killing the rare just because there's so much monsters around it, right? So that's very important to still factor in the clear. Now, the viability of that class is going to be attributed some points, and the viability is how good are you at survivability and at clear. If you're not good at both, the viability of the class is not going to be good. I'm really sorry about this. My dog is puking. Damn. Okay. A bit of a distraction. Now, also, there's going to be a point attributed to how easy the class is to play. And obviously, I don't know about the new classes, so we're going to have to figure it out. Also, the new skills with the MSL and stuff. But when I don't know, I'm just going to put half a point, and it's going to be set. There's also going to be a list for hardcore and a list for standard. So how good is it in hardcore and how good is it in standard? So let's start. So for Chayula, this is the lowest point base on average. So this is going to be a list. We're going to start with the lowest points in terms of average, so in between hardcore and standard. At the end of the video, I will put a hardcore and a standard tier list, because they are completely different beasts. But for now, we're just going to do an average. Let's say you have 12 points in hardcore and 10 points in standard. The average is going to be 11. Now, for hardcore and standard is going to be based on your clear speed a lot more, and the hardcore is going to be based on your survivability a lot more. So this is how the class will be evaluated. So let's start with Chayula. Now, Chayula is going to be very good at killing uniques because of all these damage gain nodes stuff, and it's pretty good also at survivability, kind of, because Unleash is instant, goes back to your energy shield. Darkness is pretty good. Now we know that arrows are getting nerfed most likely, so not having spirit might not be as big of a deal. But still, for this class, I'm gonna give killing uniques 4 points out of 5. Killing rares 3 points out of 5 because the clear is not very good. We have a clear of 1 out of 3 points and a survivability of 2 out of 3 points. while having a global viability of 1.5 out of 3 points. And how easy it is to play the class? Very easy. I give it 1 point. So on hardcore, the total comes to 11.5 out of 20 points, standard 10.5 out of 20 points, and on average 11 points. Now let's go into BloodMage. Okay, so for BloodMage, killing uniques I would say is pretty okay. There is not like crazy damage nodes, even though there is. But if you want to be like have a lot of survivability, you can have both, right? You can have like crazy leech, crazy damage, crazy survivability. You kind of have to choose. So that's why for killing uniques, I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. Killing rares 3, because the clear is kind of liking a little bit. We're gonna give it a 1.5 for the clear. There's nothing really here that helps out that much with the clear. So, and for survivability, we're gonna give it a 3 because, well, it's BloodMage. Now for viability, we're gonna give it a 2. And the reason we give it a 2 is because, well, it's pretty good at surviving. So you're gonna be most likely able to clear juiced map without having to TP back all the time, like without dying, right? So you won't be losing the map. Now for how easy it is to play this class, a big 0. So for hardcore, 13 points out of 20, 12.5 in standard out of 20, and for average 12.75 points out of 20. Now let's move on to Invoker. Wait, I cannot even move. Where is it? Okay. Invoker. Now for Invoker, right now it's probably one of the best class in the game just because of how the herald works. Same thing with Gemling, right? So but in terms of league starter, I would say it's very, like, depending on if they change the bell or not. We'll go with the assumption that they're gonna probably nerf the bell, but still I'm pretty sure that the killing uniques will be very good, so I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. Killing rares a 4 out of 5 just because we're lacking clear. But if you go magnified effect and expanse on the bell, let's say they have a global cooldown on the bell, you can still have a pretty good clear to kill a rare. It's just that your average clear in general is going to be lacklusting, especially with no herald chaining and stuff like that. So I'm going to give it a 1 out of 3 for the clear. And in terms of survivability, I'm going to give it a 2.5. We have to think that this is one of the class that people hit 100 first with, so definitely a good survivability class for hardcore. Now in terms of viability, I would give it a 1.5, and in terms of how easy it is to play, a big 0. Now for hardcore, we're giving it a 13.5 out of 20, 12.5 for standard, and 13 average. Now let's go for Chrono. Now Chrono, it's mostly utility based, right? We have to think about the fact that our damage might be lacklusting, right? Like we're probably gonna lack damage unless you go into Quicksand Hourglass, which could be good, kind of. But if there is big combos possible in the game, maybe it's going to be good. But since we know that they're not really going to add much more spells and stuff, well, you know, we have to do with what we have right now. And I would say for killing uniques, it's going to be a 3 out of 5. For killing rares, 3 out of 5, just because you have so much utility. Even though the damage is not really there, it's still pretty good to heal those. In terms of survivability, I would give this a 3 out of 3. It's one of the strongest class I've played in hardcore. It's the first class that I've speedrun. Act 3 Doriani, killed her without dying. just because of Temporal Rift. Temporal Rift is with Mom is completely insane. Let's say you lose, you have a lot of energy shield, you have a lot of life, and you have a lot of mana. You get hit by a big hit, you just hit Temporal Rift, you're back full life, full HP, full energy shield. It's the best way to recoup your mana from having Mom, right? Because Mom is really hard to recoup your mana early game, but with Temporal Rift it doesn't matter. You recoup 100%. There's no 50% less recoup or gain back, or you basically remove the downside with having Temporal Rift. So I would say for survivability, a big 3, if not more. And the clear, I would give it a 2, because overall Chrono has pretty good clear. Spells you can stack int, so you can go Decaying X, and Decaying X and Pending Doom and stuff like that is very, very good for clear. Now for viability, we're gonna give it a 2.5 out of 3, and for how easy it is, a big 0, because Temporal Rift is not that easy to play. You're not necessarily gonna be, there's a learning curve. So we're not gonna say 0, maybe it's 0.25, but for the sake of this video, we're gonna give it a 0. So for hardcore, I'm gonna give it a 13.5. For standard, 13.5, and on average, well, the same. Now let's go for ritual. Okay, so now ritual. Ritual is a tricky one because killing rares with this Ascendancy with As the Whispers Ask is gonna be insanely good. Okay, this is why I give it a 6 out of 5 for killing rares. Just because if you're able to stack skill effect and stuff like that and keep it for a long time, killing rares is gonna be insane. Okay, you could go full tank and still have damage. You're just gonna be lacking damage at the first rare or 2, but then you're gonna ramp up everything, right? Now for killing uniques, this is a tricky one, because if you're not able to have Ask the Whisper Ask, you're gonna be lacking a lot. So I give it a 3 out of 5 for killing uniques. For survivability, I would say I give it a 1.5, and the only reason I give it a 1.5 is because you can have really good mods from rares for survivability. Otherwise, this class would be like a 0.5 survivability in terms of points, because the 0.5 is just the fact that you have like ring slots, so that you can have some kind of defense more, just because of the stats, right? But overall, it's not a very good class to survive. In terms of clear speed, I would give it 1.5, very like normal. I don't see anything crazy about the clear, but who knows what's going to be in the game. So since I'm not sure, just 1.5 seems to be a sweet spot. For viability, I gave it a 1.5, and for how easy it is to play, I'll give it a big 0, just because there's so many random elements from having a headhunter like build Ascendancy. So for this, I'll give it a 13.5 in hardcore, a 13.5 in standard, and a 13.5 on average. Now for Warbringer. Warbringer as a league starter is not super great, but the reason it could be is because of totems. Now totems are pretty powerful at killing uniques and rares, but since Warbringer is not necessarily like that offensive in terms of like in terms of damage that you can get from your totems and stuff, I'll give it a 3 out of 5 for killing uniques, a 3 for killing rares. Now for survivability, I will give this class a 4. Now why a 4? Because Encased Jade is extremely powerful on a totem build, and you have like more block chance, you take damage from hits from 2-layer totems. It's extremely good at surviving. So for this, good for the clear, a 1, not very good at clearing, I would say. Now in terms of viability, I would give this a 2.5 just because of how good it is at surviving and also how easy it is to play. So the only thing that is hard would be like timing your Encased Jade, which is not that hard, especially on a totem build. So on average, hardcore, we're gonna give this a 14.5. On standard, a 12.5, just because it lacks so much clear speed. So on average, a 13.5 points. Now let's move on to the Amazon. Okay. Now the Amazon is interesting because it has clearly a 5 out of 5 killing uniques potential, just because of how good Predatory Instinct is. Also, in for the kill, not super great, but you could potentially make it work with some niche build. Obviously, Critical Strike is completely insane, especially if it's flat base, but it depends really if it's flat base or not. Now, Life Leech, based on your elemental damage, can be very good. Elemental Infusion and stuff. Life Flask also recover mana, Mana Flask also recover life. There's like some really good, not survivability, but like very good sustain and very high damage for killing rares and uniques. So for this, we're gonna give this a 4 for killing rares, 5 for uniques for sure. For survivability, 0.5. It's not very good at surviving at all. The only node that could help you is the more evasion rating, but in hardcore we all know that even if you evade 99% of the time, you get hit once and you die, it's over. So not very good in terms of survivability. In terms of clear speed, I would say 1.5, just because you're killing rares so quickly, but it's pretty much the only reason. Now for viability, I'll give this a 1 out of 3. Not very good, I think, in terms of viability, but maybe some people are going to be able to make it work. It's also very easy to play overall if you look at it. So for this reason, I'm going to give it a 13 in hardcore and a 14.5 in standard. The highest score now for standard, with an average of 13.75. Now Deadeye. Let's go with the Deadeye. Now Deadeye is probably, right now in the game, was probably one of the best class for killing uniques and rares. So right now I'll give it a 4.5 for killing uniques, a 4 for killing rares. For survivability, I'll give it a 1, and the only reason I give it a 1 is just because of Windward. Windward is so insane, but it's also very random. If you don't have your stacks, your survivability is basically 0. If you have your stacks, your survivability is like a 2. So on average, it's a bit random on a hardcore, so you might die easily, or you might feel super tanky, or you just might die one shot. That's just the nature of Deadeye. So for clear speed, I'm gonna give it a 1.5, and viability a 1, and for RZ it is clearly a 1. So for hardcore, give it a 13. Yeah, for hardcore, give it a 13, and for standard, I give it a 14.5, just like the Amazon, which gives an average of 13.75. Now Gemling. Gemling, we all know how powerful it was, but how expensive it was. Now we're talking about league start. So in terms of league start, Gemling, I would say for killing uniques is probably going to be a 3.5 out of 5. And killing rares at 3. Survivability at 2, just because of how insane enhanced effectiveness is and how adaptive capability is. The reason why it's like overall good for clear and killing uniques and how easy it is just because of adaptive capabilities. You can use anything in the game, so anything that is OP in the game, you're going to be able to use it, right? So it cannot be bad, and it's easy to play. So in terms of survivability, a 2 out of 3, clear 1.5, because we don't really know it. There might be a really good clear, easily used by Gemling. And for viability, clearly a 2. How easy it is, 1, the easiest class to play probably. I give this a 14 for hardcore, 14 for standard, and 14 average overall. Now for Stormreaver. Stormreaver is not a class I've played, but I've seen so much people play it, I can just speak on it just by observation, right? So let's talk about how good it is going to be at killing uniques. Now we know that the shock effect and stuff, they're going to be nerfed and stuff, so I think killing uniques and killing rares is going to be a lot weaker in this patch for Stormreaver, but I'm still going to give it a 3 out of 5 for killing uniques, a 3.5 for killing rares just because of the clear speed, which I'm giving 3, which is the best right now that we've been giving for clear speed. In terms of survivability, there's really nothing that helps you survive here except the fact that you clear a lot, and maybe you're gonna take like the elemental damage recoup as energy shield, but still you're vulnerable to physical damage and chaos damage. So overall, I would give this a 0.5 for survivability. Now in terms of viability, a 2, and how easy it is to play, a 1. So it gives us a 13 in hardcore, 15.5 in standard, which is the highest score points and for now, and 14.25 on average. Now let's go to the Infernalist. Now the Infernalist is also a class I didn't play much, but there's a lot of people that played, so again, very easy to check and see how it's going. I would say for killing uniques, they are overall pretty okay. Obviously minion builds for killing uniques is a bit weaker than killing rares, just because there's so many monsters nearby when you're killing rares, and you can like detonate dead and stuff like that. So I would give Infernalist a 3 out of 5 for killing uniques, a 4 out of 5 for killing rares. In terms of survivability, we all know Infernalist is probably one of the best classes for surviving. I'll give it a 2.5 since we know that energy shield is highly gonna get nerfed. And for clear, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 3 just because of Daytona Dead and stuff like that. And for viability, I'm gonna give it a 2. How easy it is to play, a 1. Now this is only if you do not play demon form. If you play demon form, well, it won't be that easy, okay? Just letting you know. Now we're gonna give it a 14.5 for hardcore and a 14.5 for standard, which gives us a 14.5 average points, which is the highest almost in both domain. Very good class overall, and kind of easy to play if you're playing a minion build. Now Lich, let's talk about the Lich. Now the Lich is very interesting, okay? I would say it's probably one of the strongest class, but at the same time it's going to be hard to play most likely, but it's also going to be pretty weak to kill uniques and rares. And let me explain. So since it's based a lot on curse and stuff like that, and there's just like a lot of downside to stuff in general. Like the survivability looks really good, but then also it can look like sketchy and very situational depending on like what's going on. If you have like crazy mana cost because of crystalline, and then you have like problems because you don't have energy shield anymore, then you cannot regain enough of mana, and your mom setup is like going crazy. I don't know, like there's a lot of things, there's a lot of red flags with this Ascendancy, but there's also a lot of really positive ones. So I'm gonna give it a 2.5 for killing uniques, a 3 for killing rares just because of the clear. Survivability, I give it a 3. You can run Enfeeble, you can run Mom, you can have a lot of energy shield, you can have a lot of life. Overall, this is very good at surviving, I would say. Crazy good clear, for sure. Decaying Hex is probably going to be very strong this patch with Impending Doom, and then you can even explode even more when they die. Yeah, I don't remember where it is exactly, but it says like when your cursed enemy explode, yeah, so you there's gonna be a lot of explosion going on, and with Impending Doom and stuff, it's gonna be pretty damn good, I would say. So for viability, I give it a 3. It's the first class to have a 3 in viability, and I give it a 0 in how easy it's going to be to play it. So I give it a 14.5 in hardcore, a 14.5 in standard, and on average, obviously, 14.5. Now let's go to Pathfinder. Now Pathfinder, I think is going to be very much, pretty much more strong than the current Pathfinder in this current meta, and the reason why is because it has a built-in clear, and it has very good single target overall, kind of. So for killing uniques, I would say 3 out of 5. For killing rares, clearly a 4. For survivability, I will give it a 0.5. It has really nothing going on in terms of survivability, but it has probably one of the craziest clear in the game right now, since it has a built-in clear. And for viability, I'll give it a 2. For how easy it is to play, I'm gonna give it a 1, just because of like having skill point early on is crazy, or having that contagious contamination early on is also crazy, and brew concoction are all also very powerful. So I'm gonna give it a 13.5 for hardcore, just because of how weak it is, but a 15.5 for standard, which is tying up with Stormreaver, which is crazy. So 14.5 on average. Now let's go back to the Tactician. Now the Tactician is very tricky to figure out, just because there's just so many things we don't know, and just like persistent buff have 50% less reservation, there's a lot of things you can do with that, by the way. You can have like totems that cost only 50 spirits, and you can have unlimited amount of totem, and it's probably the only reason it's that high up in the list is because you can play totem based Tactician. You can easily get Giant's Blood, so you can have a shield and your two-hander with like a really good melee stuff. You can have allies gain damage equal to your main damage weapon. Now you can defend with 200% of armor, which is crazy. Even though you have 50% maximum reduction, that means, like, let's say you're reductioning I don't know if it's a word, but let's say the boss hits you with a really big hits. We know how it works. Let's say you only reduce by 10 to 20% of the fizz damage, which is not that much, but now you have 50%, 200%, so you have double the armor, so maybe you're able to mitigate double of that, so you'll be mitigating 20 to 40% of the big hit, even though you're reducing 50% from the smaller hits. This is very good for bossing and for rares. So in terms of survivability, I'm gonna give it a 2.5. In terms of, also, just because pin enemies cannot perform actions, you can put Wind Dancer with pin, and then when they're close to you, they attack you, they get pinned, they cannot do anything. Insane. Sorry, completely insane. Okay, there's just too many good stuff. Obviously, the only problem with all of this is that you cannot get everything. Like, there's so many good nodes that you kind of have to choose, right? So for the Tactician, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 for killing uniques, just because of totems and how strong they are. Same for killing rares, 4 out of 5. Survivability 2.5. And excuse me, And for clear, I'm gonna give it a 1.5 because we don't really know how it's gonna go, but maybe we can chain it with Herald of Plague, and we'll have to see how it goes. Maybe they nerf that one too. So in terms of viability, a 2 out of 3, and how easy it is to play, I would say a 1. It's very easy to play overall if you play totem based. Now if you play something else, this is a different beast, but in terms of totem, I would say this is probably one of the best class to play totem with. So we're gonna give it a 15 points in hardcore and a 14 in standard, which give us a 14.5 for average. Now let's go to Smith of Kitava. Okay, this one is probably the best class for hardcore, and let me tell you why. Now for killing uniques and killing rares, if you want to be tanky, I would say it's not gonna be crazy damage, but if you would want to go full damage with fire spell on hit, you could potentially have insane damage. But in terms of, like, let's say we want a basic setup, easy to play, high defense, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 for killing uniques, and killing rares I'm gonna give it a 3.5 just because it lacks a bit of clear. Now in terms of survivability, I'm gonna give this class a 4 out of 3 just because of how insane these nodes are. Super easy to stack elemental. You're gonna probably have crazy armor. So crazy armor with very high elemental resistances equal a warrior that cannot die, because when you have high armor, the only thing that really kills you is elemental damage. Now the only problem is gonna be probably chaos damage, but still you can find a way to have enough, since you don't have to spec into that much resistances overall to get to capped. So survivability a 4, clear I give it a 1, in terms of viability a 2.5, and how easy it is to play a 1. So that gives us 16 points in hardcore, 13.5 in standard, which gives us an average of 14.75. Now let's go to Titan. Okay, now Titan, the reason why it's so high in the list is because of the potential of just how you can do pretty much anything with this class and abuse anything that is really good in the game, but you need to know what you are doing. So obviously in terms of how easy it is, it's going to be a big 0. In terms of killing uniques, killing rares, I'm going to give it a 4 just because you can abuse whatever is going to be good in the current format. If you're not going for what is good, I wouldn't say that this class is good. So in terms of survivability, I'll give it a 1.5. I don't think it's has crazy good survivability, but it's not the worst either. And in terms of clear, I'll give it a 1.5 just because we don't really know, but you can abuse something that is good and make it good. So in terms of viability, this one has a 4 out of 3 points just because you can pretty much do whatever you want and make it really good if you know what you're doing. So I'll give it for hardcore 15 points out of 20, 15 points in standard, and an average of 15. Now you're saying, wait a minute bro, there is no way that the last class is WitchHunter, and it is. And I'll tell you why, okay? Why is WitchHunter the best class, I think, for league starting in this upcoming patch? Because it destroys uniques, it destroys rares with Culling Strike, with Decimating Strike, and because of Zealous Inquisition. And I'll tell you why Zealous Inquisition is gonna shine this patch. I'm pretty sure it's because of Herald of Plague. You can scale Herald of Plague with Zealous Inquisition, and if you can get poisoned on hit 100% without a single, let's say with jewels, you need 5 jewels, right? and you can get 100% chance to poison on hit, so you could have infinite chain of Zealous Inquisition, and if you have enough excuse me, if you have enough AoE, you can also like basically kill the whole map super easily. It scales off the monster you kill in terms of health, so it's like you can have a crazy good single target, which is good for killing uniques and rares. So for killing uniques, I'll give it a 4.5. Honestly, it's probably a 5. But I just felt like there was just too many points going towards him. In terms of killing rares, it's clearly a 5 just because of Zealous Inquisitions. If there's a rare nearby with a lot of monsters, you're gonna one-shot that rare. It's gonna be insane. In terms of survivability, now the only thing that is bad about this class is survivability. We're gonna give it a 0.5 just because there is sorcery ward that could possibly be used, and your clear speed is probably going to be insane, so you have some kind of survivability. And in terms of clear speed, a 3. It's honestly probably a 4. It's just so insane. Herald of Plague, Zealous Inquisition, you can kill, especially if there's high monster density, you will shred the map. The rares, the uniques, everything is gonna get completely destroyed. And for this, I give the viability 1.5, even though it's probably higher. And in terms of how easy it is to play, a 1. It's pretty easy to play. So for hardcore, I give it a 15.5, but for standard, I give it a 19 out of 20 with the highest score, with an average of 17.25. So that's about it, guys. Let me know what you guys think. If you want to see there's gonna be another one exactly like this when the patch notes come out, and I will analyze everything. Obviously, take this with a grain of salt. It's just a personal opinion, and it's just based on 800 hours of playing, speed running the game in a hardcore, and kind of knowing like what's good and what not. But overall, I would say the biggest potential with what I've seen is WitchHunter, and I just don't have anything else to say about it. It just seems super crazy with the fact there's just so many uniques, so many rares, and you don't need that much clear, but Zealous Inquisition will fix that problem without actually affecting your single target. So overall, that's about it. Peace out.